Welcome to the bold analysis. Immediately after the mass action anti-government protest, William Samoei Ruto traversed the country, visiting different regions, accompanied by the intelligence team, and while conducting impromptu rallies, it came to realization that Kenyans are not in good terms with William Ruto's administration. He's not in good terms with Kenya Kwanza. And a tour that was meant to cool the tempers due to the political aggression that is going on, President met hostility. And whenever he would visit a place, in Vihiga, he was heckled. In Kericho, there was heckling. In Kilifi, it was not friendly. So what he did is he came back, settled in office as we had been requesting, and started making calls, asking government officials what exactly is the reason behind that rebellion, or the reason behind his reception during the countrywide rallies. And the intelligence was not very friendly with him, and he seemed to have really gotten out his way. So that is why that event of performance appraisal, of signing of contracts, was actually done as part of a strategy to try to put the team on toes. The public lecture of William Ruto coming out to wander in public is something that is really worrying us. It's really something that is very laughable. I remember when Uhuru Kenyatta asked, "Mnataka nifanye nini?" It was after there was a lot of frustration on his end. But truth be told, this is a reverse psychology on us. William Ruto did not realize yesterday that government is not doing well. He did not realize yesterday that some of the cabinet members are incompetent. Neither the principal secretaries do not understand their dockets, because he sits in cabinet every week. In fact, we blamed Uhuru Kenyatta that Uhuru Kenyatta did not conduct cabinet meetings weekly. So William Ruto conducts cabinet and subcommittee meetings weekly and receives daily intelligence on whatever is going on. So it's not true that he just made those calls and realized all of a sudden that some people are not working. But then that does not mean that those people are competent. What I mean here is, we've always been talking about the incompetence, but it's not true that the president just realized yesterday. But something was very interesting. He acknowledged something that in the bold here we've always spoken about. The concern that the population is not feeling what the government is doing. But that is what they've opted to speak about, saying that state officials are simply not explaining government agenda to the people. So is the problem state officials, or the problem is that there is nothing to be communicated? And that is why I want to make this very clearly. Yesterday, when the cabinet members appeared, and let me tell you, there is no laws that says that performance contracts must be signed in public, in full glare of the camera. These are documents that can be dispatched to the ministries and they sign and they're returned, even the physical copies. The government has office messengers that can dispatch these documents to ministry officers, then they're signed and then they're returned to the public service. They're not documents kept in State House, actually under public service. And so, what we witnessed yesterday is public posturing, that Ruto is clearly trying to apportion blame to his cabinet members, and now he's playing the saint card that I am good person, I communicate, I call so and so, and he could not explain what his ministry is doing. So he's trying to do what many of us have been talking about, that sometimes a king will sacrifice his servants so that he can cleanse himself. But that's not it. Let me answer this. The problem is not that state officials are not explaining the government agenda. To William Ruto, the reason why the Kenyan population, the citizens, do not understand and don't even see what you are doing is because a frosty relationship between government and media. You'll have to regret this for quite some time. Rigathi Gachagua is on record vilifying and profiling the media as pro-Azimio. You know, Moses Kuria was on record calling a very senior media owner, very unprintable names, and abusing even some journalists by calling them some very obscene names. As if that is not enough, there are also some state officials that producers, TV producers will confirm this with you. If you're close to this, you'll realize that some are invited for interviews and they cancel interviews last minute. You know, we have some WhatsApp group where we talk with the editors. Mtu anaita, an hour before that interview, that state officer has declined. Others have totally declined to appear in an interview. But then you can do your research and realize there are some 2 cabinet secretaries that have never appeared in a single interview since 9 months since they occupied those offices. Never. You can do your research well, then you'll find out. This is something that is affecting. And during something in the corridors, do you know that government has some pending bills, and the outstanding pending bills on the media was never catered for in their budget? So even themselves, they're stifled. But the reason why I'm making this point is because these cabinet members and state officials cannot go and the medium of reaching, of relaying that message is the media. It's not funerals, it's not rallies per se, because cabinet members are not supposed to be in rallies. Yes, they're not supposed to be, they don't speak government agenda in those Sunday events, Sunday rallies touted as interdenominational service events. No, they're supposed to use the media. So if government has a frosty relationship with media, then the messaging is going to be suppressed, if indeed there is something to be relayed to. How is media going to set agenda of the day on what a specific ministry is doing or what government is doing, specific project government is doing, if the president himself has overshadowed the cabinet? And in any event, the president will attend every event, be it land issuing title deeds, be it some project, water project that can be launched even by the minister, be it, you know, every event, any event that can be launched that a minister can take limelight is taken over by the president. So what happens is this. Now, after overshadowing his cabinet, he also takes the media airtime that he has to play politics, not to play, to speak more politics. Now, when you speak more politics, and it's a bit of antagonism, responding to what Azimio is saying. By the way, let me tell you, let's be honest. Even if there is a water project being launched in Machakos or in Narok, the water project, the discussion about water projects will be 1 minute. 70% of the speeches by those who are attending, they will always carry some MPs with them. We'll talk about Azimio and Kenya Kwanza and the protest and Raila and the handshake. Now, if the government itself has set the tone on political messaging, then how do you expect the public even to pay attention to what government is doing, or even the media to capture what the government is doing? Because themselves, they make a lot of controversial and inflammatory statements when they're launching government events, government projects. So what happens here is, government, the next day when you go to Star, or the next minute when you go to Star, instead of, there is, media, the rest, messaging is normally inverted H. When you look at the 5 W's of where, when, what, where, who, you realize that this title is on what Ruto said about Raila, or what Osora said about Uhuru, or what Ichungwa is saying about Uhuru. That is it. It's because themselves, they have set the country into some sort of a campaign mode. Now, even the citizens have switched off. They've said in my mind that, okay, in this administration, there's nothing I'm going to do, let's listen to the politics. And they've taken it. On this one, Azimio has also carried the day, because Azimio has stuck on the political solutions in terms of what is happening in the government, and government find itself responding more to Azimio than explaining what they are doing. 3. What happens when you appoint political cronies and tribal representatives in government? Kuna haka katabia. When Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto are attending an event in a region, they will be parading state officials and projecting them before citizens as people who are representing those communities. When someone goes to Nyanza, you will always be reminded, when Owalo is called, Owalo is your son who's been given this, represents Luo. Raymond Omolo, same to Pamela Malonza in the coast, in Ukambani. When you go to Mombasa, you'll always find a way you parade someone as a community representative. Now, what happens here is, we tend to give a lot of entitlement to these fellows because they carry a political clout around them, that they've been appointed because they represent that community. So what happens? I may not be fired because I'm the most person from Luo here. So even that really gotten out of hand. But this is the gospel truth. What Kenya Kwanza is doing is more administrative work. They are churning policies day in, day out. Churning policies, roadside declarations in rallies, but less in terms of implementation. And why this has also become a concern is because that which Ruto is doing is not meeting the needs of the people. Even the other day I saw Murkomen signing a deal with Ugandan Minister of Transport for extension of the SGR there. Of course, it's a big project. It was not carried. Tell me, what's it? Aisha Jumwa, you will realize that if you want to know something, nothing is going on. The price of fertilizer, we are told, has dropped to 2,500. Do you know that Ruto has called press conference telling us about the price of fertilizer has dropped? Let me tell you. Do you know? You will always see the executive calling press conferences, talking about things that ministers would have spoken about. Then you want to blame them. It's not entirely them. The issue here is what is going on. Because when things are happening, it doesn't even need Waziri to explain. The people will see. You will see them posting in social media. Nowadays we are in social media age. You will see them, you will see people when they're attending rallies, they will always praise you for what you're doing. It doesn't mean that Waziri have to explain. Kenyans themselves can see what is being done and rise and say, this is being done, this is good, we have seen this. So what we are explaining, what we are defining is wrong. And according to me, Ruto is playing reverse psychology. He knew very well things going on. The intelligence that maybe was behind those calls was simply a confirmation of what some of us have been saying, that people are not listening to you. You are talking to them, they're not cheering, they're not interested, they're just looking at you, and they're just like, is this person doing what really we want? So it's time for some soul searching. But I can tell you, it's a good starting point because it's setting a ground for some reshuffle. Yeah. At one point, someone will say, we signed performance contracts, I warned you, I'm not seeing you guys delivering. Now, the second phase of managing the slow pace of government will be firing, or rather reshuffling the cabinet, so that people will be sacrificed. That's my take.